Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, I went to a small theater in southern Michigan where I saw a live production of A Christmas Carol. Now in that production, the stage was used in a very interesting way. Generally, when Scrooge was moving from one visit of a ghost to another, back to his room or to some dream sequence, the curtains were closed. And only the area at the very front of the stage, just in front of the orchestra pit, was available to the actors. And this gave the stage crew an opportunity to reset the scene behind the curtain while the show was still ongoing. This kept things moving while allowing scene changes that didn't bore the audience. When the time came for Scrooge to confront his own gravestone, they did something very interesting with this conceit. They closed the curtains, and the ghost of Christmas future pointed towards them, allowing us to see Scrooge's gravestone in our mind's eye rather than showing it to us as a prop. Now, as the story goes, Scrooge became terrified of his own death, and he fell on his knees, and he grabbed the robes of the ghost of Christmas future, and he begged to be spared from his fate. And when the ghost refused to answer him, he got more and more agitated. He stood up, and he began to plead, waving his arms about, all the things you would expect Scrooge to do in this situation. And when the ghost still did not respond, he made a final lunge to grab its robes and beg for mercy. But the robes flew up into the rafters of the theater, the curtain swept open, and Scrooge fell directly into the set that represented his own bedroom. And of course, he landed in his bed, as the story goes. It was a very clever bit of staging that involved wires hanging from the ceiling, trapdoors in the floor, and apparently a very athletic actor who probably only had 10 seconds, maybe less, to open the trapdoor, get completely down out of the robes, and close the door again before his costume was whipped up into the rafters and the deception was potentially revealed to the audience. Now, all of this is a very clever bit of staging, and it was very well performed, but the reason I am sharing it with you is because I have remembered it ever since the moment I saw it. In fact, I have always wanted to be a part of theatrical productions that could do something that magical. When I was 6 years old, that blew my mind, that such an incredible bit of storytelling could be done with very simple tools with only the dedication and passion of the performers. Even at that age, I understood that I was seeing people who were wearing costumes, who were reciting lines, and who had never actually lived in Victorian London or were not, in fact, the ghosts that represented Christmas in some strange, abstract way. And yet, not only in my acting endeavors, but in my storytelling in general, I have tried very hard to have that kind of inspiring moment where something incredible happens, and you will have a moment that really drives home the feeling of the characters or the importance of a situation. This is the climax of Scrooge's character arc, and by a simple yet very inventive and impactful bit of stagecraft, the people who acted out this telling of A Christmas Carol made sure I would never forget that moment. I have never seen this moment in the story portrayed in a way that moves me as powerfully as the memory of that moment that I saw when I was a child. I tell you this story because there is an interesting conceit that has crept up in the last 30 to 40 years. An idea that a piece of art that is not preserved for all eternity is somehow diminished. A lot of people will tell you to own physical media so that the stories you love will always be available to you, and you will not run the risk that they will be lost or destroyed or altered by other people in positions of authority, or even by the mob who becomes upset with something and sets out to destroy it. There are many good reasons for that attitude. It is very important, I think, to make sure that works of art particularly are not altered to suit the interests of people who see art not as a reflection of the human experience, but as a tool to manipulate and destroy people who would oppose them or to build themselves up through trickery or self-aggrandizing lies. At the same time, The production of A Christmas Carol, which I saw when I was a child, was not recorded. It is not available anywhere in any way for me to go back and experience again. I could only see it one time in my life, and it will never, ever be available to anyone again. And I think that transience is good. Not all art needs to be always at your fingertips. Sometimes the power of art to inspire can be lost if we wallow in it too long. We are not meant to crawl into stories or paintings or music and live in it. It is a place to visit, to remind us of where we are headed, to remind us of the essence of our nature that must be brought out and put into place in our lives. And if we live always in art, we are not actually living in the real world where the lessons of art must be applied to be meaningful. As I have lived my life trying to recreate and share the moment that I saw on that stage many years ago, I have tried to live out and share the lesson of that singular and transient performance with people. And it is, I think, far more valuable to me as a writer and as a performer to have that moment only in my memory and to only be able to share it with other people through my own skills than to have that moment immortalized on film or in some other medium where I simply have to point people to it and say, oh, if you want to experience this moment, you can just look over there. That removes the responsibility of sharing that moment from me. And while it is good to have pieces of art that are pillars, that cannot be moved, that are permanent, if there are no transient moments in art, some of that calling to embody and to live out the lessons we take from art is lost. And with that, I think we become much poorer, and our ability to create new art is weakened because we are not exercising our artistic muscles constantly in pursuit of those great and memorable moments that shaped us. There is real and meaningful value in transient art. Do not overlook that. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a like button and a subscribe button down below. You can use those as you see fit. And I'll talk to you later.